Your 20s are the most important decade of your life. But the strange thing is, most people only realize that when it's already over. By the time people reach their 30s, they often look back and think, I wish I had used my 20s differently. So the real question is, what you should actually focus on during your 20s. In my view, there are 4 foundations that shape how successful this decade becomes. The reality is that your 20s are not about having everything figured out, but they are about building the foundations that your future life will stand on. And in my view, there are 4 pillars that shape this decade: career direction, financial discipline, character and judgment, and your health. If you focus on building these 4 foundations during your 20s, you give yourself a huge advantage later in life. So, let's go through each one. The first pillar is career direction. Your 20s are not about finding the perfect job immediately, but they are about choosing a direction and gaining experience. Many people in their 20s drift between roles without building real expertise. What matters most during this decade is learning how industries work, developing useful skills, and building experience under your belt. You may not choose the perfect path at the beginning, and that's completely normal. But by picking a lane and committing to it for a period of time, you start learning valuable lessons that guide your next move. Building a career takes time and consistency, and the earlier you start gaining meaningful experience, the better positioned you'll be later on. Your 20s are really about one simple idea. Pick a lane, build experience, and allow consistency over time to produce results. The second pillar is financial discipline. Most people in their 20s are not earning huge amounts of money yet, but this is the decade where financial habits are formed. Learning how to manage your income, avoid unnecessary debt, and build savings creates stability and flexibility later in life. Small habits developed early can compound significantly over time. Financial discipline isn't about becoming rich quickly. It's about building the habits and structures that support long-term stability. For example, something as simple as starting a pension fund in your 20s doesn't mean you'll have a large amount immediately, but by the time you reach your 30s, you're not starting from zero. You have already something there that you can build upon. And that's really the idea behind financial discipline in your 20s. You're creating the foundations that make financial progress easier later in life. The third pillar is character and judgment. Your 20s are a period where you begin to develop how you make decisions and how you approach life, the people you surround yourself with, the environments you place yourself in, and the ability to stay disciplined even when progress feels slow. All of these things shape your character over time. Success rarely comes from one single moment. It usually comes from years of consistent decisions and habits. This is also the decade where it's important to invest in yourself, develop hobbies, read books, explore ideas, travel if you can, but do so responsibly and within your financial means. These experiences broaden your perspective and help you develop better judgment. Over time, these small choices shape who you become and how you approach opportunities later in life. The fourth pillar is health. Your 20s are the easiest time in life to build strong physical habits. Exercise, routine, and taking care of your body create energy and clarity that affect every other part of your life. Health often becomes a priority later in life, sometimes when problems appear, but the real advantage comes from building strong habits early. If you build a strong health routine in your 20s, it becomes a foundation that supports everything else in your life. Your 20s are not about having everything figured out. They are about building foundations, career direction, financial discipline, character and judgment, and your health. Each of these pillars shapes the future you build. In the next videos, we'll explore each of these pillars in more detail. Because the truth is, your 20s don't define your future overnight, but the foundations you build during this decade will shape the rest of your life. Thanks for listening.